Okay, great. Do you want to talk about your special?
Sure.
Give me the short version.
It's a comedy special on Netflix, and I think it's the most important thing ever, and it will change the course of human history. So you should watch if you'd like to be a part of that. As we know, podcasters are like the most important people in the world. Actually, we didn't know that, but now I've realized it, that we are the arbiters of all things, and comedians matter.
Yeah.
We thought we were just trying to get over stuff that our family did to us, but it's big news. So it's super important, and you should watch it with your whole family, and the course of history will change. There's a lot going on.
I've been researching comedy, essentially, the way comedy is now.
Yes.
So I've been talking to lots of people. Yeah. And one of the comedians that I interviewed said that he thought more people were looking to people like you for their news and opinion because the news got a little dumber and comedians got a little smarter. Tell me what you think about that. Like, why is this happening?
Well, I think that the news has said a variation of the same thing for a very long time. And I think people just tend to get bored, right? I mean, you had institutions like this, you had institutions like Fox, and largely they fell, on opposite sides of the same question. So I think just the idea that you have different emerging platforms and different voices, people are just, saying, all kinds of things. Some of them are crazy, some of them are the most insane things you've ever heard, some of them have value, some of them don't. I think it's just a lot more interesting to people, especially people who grew up online or are younger people, seem to gravitate towards that kind of media more than the kind of fake, stilted corporate speak of kind of the traditional legacy media. But I don't know if it's that comedians have gotten smarter or media's gotten dumber. I think media's just kind of become predictable and boring, and the internet has kind of been an antidote to that.
I've heard comedy podcasts referred to as a friendship simulator. What do you think about that?
I think it's comforting to hear somebody you listen to a lot. I don't know if it's a friendship simulator, but I think that there's something comforting about turning on something that you listen to a lot in the same way that watching a television show you like was comforting. Mm-hmm. I think it's comforting to, anything that's recurring seems to provide a level of comfort. And I think podcasts are intimate, like radio, they're very intimate because you're listening to something. A lot of times you're alone. You're, driving your car, working out, taking a walk, cooking, whatever. So I think there's an intimacy to that other forms of media might lack.
So I'm sure you're aware of where's the liberal Joe Rogan, like that whole conversation.
Yes, that is a question they're asking.
That is a question they're asking. So I was interested in that. I did a lot of research, but I think that's maybe not the most interesting question. Yeah. However, I think you have to admit, Joe Rogan has changed comedy.
I think Joe Rogan has changed media.
Can you explain how that works?
Well, Joe Rogan has this amazingly popular platform where he's led by his interests, meaning he's bringing on people that have these long-form conversations. In a world where everything's consumed in 30-second clips or 60-second clips and 15-second clips, Joe Rogan is having 3-hour discussions with people on anything from conspiracy theories to science to paleontology. He's all over the map, but he's led by his interests and he's accountable to himself and his audience, right? I mean, he's kind of blazed this trail of I'm interested in certain things and I'm going to talk about them with people who I find interesting. There's no real media that was structured like that ever, right? I mean, that's not how any of these companies were structured. It wasn't come on in, what are you guys interested in? Let's talk about it. It was kind of these are the stories and here's how we're going to cover them and here's the angles. So I think the entire structure of what Rogan has done has changed everything because it's opened up this idea that you could do that. You could pursue a strategy of talking to people that you find interesting and then growing a tremendously successful platform out of that.
Rogan moved to Austin, opened a comedy club there, and now all these comedians have moved to Austin to be part of that world.
Yeah.
How does that work? What is that like?
I think it's like any type of clubhouse that you have, right? So you have all of these different great clubs, and you have Comedy Cellar in New York and Comedy Store in LA. You know, he's opened a great comedy club in Austin where we have a lot of people go there to perform and to, there's a lot of comedy fans that go. So he's cultivated a lot of people that want to come, and he's made it kind of a destination for people that want to see comedy.
Is it a particular kind of comedy?
I think in some cases, yes.
Like, is
right?
it anti-woke or?
I think you're far less likely to find that type. Like, the word woke is kind of a boring word, but like, I think you're absolutely more likely to find the type of comedy that Joe likes at his comedy club, which is like kind of edgy, no holds barred, in the sense that, like, you know, they're not policing anybody can say anything as long as there's a good faith effort to make it funny. Mm-hmm. So I think that there are people that believe, and they're well within their rights to believe this, that there are topics and words that are off limits. And I don't think Joe feels that way. I think he feels that, like, the people that come into the club, if they have a good faith effort to make a topic funny or an idea funny, that they should be allowed the space to do that. And there are people that disagree with him on that. And there are places that you're far less likely to see certain topics talked about in a funny way because people just don't, they believe that they're off the table.
And like, what's your relationship with Rogan? Like, you've been on his show.
He's my father.
Well, you've been on his show.
We've never talked about it, and it's because I'm overweight. And he will not admit it.
He's really
but
into
he
it.
is my father. No, I've been on his show multiple. He's a great friend. I respect him, and he's been very nice and generous to me.
How does going on his show affect your career?
People, he shares his audience. He's got a massive audience. He allows you to come on and say what you want and be funny and be interesting or whatever you're going to be. And he shares his audience. It's a very generous thing to do. And there's not a lot of people who do that, by the way. There's not.
Tell me more about that.
Well, there's just not tons of people at his level that give opportunities to people the way he does.
Yeah.
There are some.
But does a young comedian have to shape his act to try to
Not at all. Joe
role?
Rogan's one podcast. It's a very big podcast, but it's one podcast in a world of podcasts, in a world of social media apps. There are comedians that have blown up on TikTok who are selling out theaters. That why would they need to shape their act? Me, I would never shape anything. Yeah. Me and Joe see a lot of things in a similar way. Yeah. Even though we're very different on paper, we see a lot of things in a similar way. So I didn't have to shape it. I don't think people go in there shaping. It would be probably quite obvious if they did.
Okay.
3 hours is a long time with someone. So if you're completely full of shit, it might be apparent.
But do you ever look at some comedians who's doing a joke like, DE, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And you're like, that.
I've never heard DE, I don't think so.
I made that up.
I've never heard
I tried to do the shortest.
By the way, there is definitely someone doing that.
That's what I mean.
There's definitely someone doing that. Yeah, that would be not a good joke.
I know,
That's
but
not a great joke.
All right, let me give you an example.
Okay.
And I won't name the person.
Okay.
But there's a comedian who lives near me.
Okay.
And he has this joke about how he walks all around New York and he sees all these flags from all these different countries, but he never sees the American flag.
Yeah.
Well, we live near each other, and I know he's talking about this little Caribbean grocery store that's got a little plastic streamer of Caribbean flags, and I'm like, it feels a little phony to me. And I'm like, it feels like he's trying to appeal to a certain audience. I'm not accusing you of that, by the way.
No. I mean, I've never been to that
analysis.
Caribbean grocery store. I don't live in your neighborhood. Do I think people exaggerate things for the benefit of comedy? Probably all the time.
But are they pitching themselves to a Fox audience? Comedians.
I couldn't know that, but does everyone's pitching themselves to somebody? So when I hear a comedian do something like that, or I hear a comedian talk about how terrible it was that they went home and their parents were the most racist people ever and they were so out of touch and whatever, and it's usually my parents are trying to be liberal but they're not, and here's why they're evil, and you're like, okay. It usually feels like it's something that's been wildly blown out of proportion because that's most of comedy, right? It's taking something and then extrapolating something from it. I mean, I don't know that particular joke, but it just feels like the basis of a lot of jokes is let's blow something up beyond the scope of its actual meaning to make it kind of goofy or make it symbolic of something else. So I think a lot of people do that in comedy. They just find something that's symbolic of something else they want to talk about.
But when
you
must like to shit talk. I mean, I shit talk within my industry.
Of course.
do you ever see other comedians
and think they're not good? Yes,
but like
we all do.
Like going for this like overt political
all
content.
over. Yes, on the right and the left, absolutely. But there's comedians that are doing that from. It's not just people that are appealing to the right or to the left. It's people that are appealing to, like, there's the mom comedian that every joke's I'm a mom. Every joke is that I'm this or I'm that. Sometimes every joke is about, I don't know, being a twin or something. I don't know, like, there's always an annoying version of that where you go, oh, so everything you think about is filtered through this lens?
Okay.
That's annoying. I think across the board. Yes, are there people that we hear and we go, oh, that's annoying with the right wing stuff? Absolutely. And with the left wing stuff. And with the, my kids, no one, whatever it is. It's like, or the Italian stuff. Do you know how much is going on right now, like this Italian nostalgia? It's disgusting. All my friends are Italian. We all grew up with chicken parmesan. We all know what it is. Enough already. It's crazy. I hate this. You see this on the internet. People act like a meatball's like a new thing. No one talks like that. Forget about it. No one does this and hasn't for decades. So yes, it's all horrible and bad. The culture's a mess. Of course. And everybody's just trying to grab on to whatever money they can before we all, float off into oblivion and become robots. But yes, are some of them annoyingly right-wing? I suppose.
Okay, just something else related to that. So one comedian who was like kind of in that world, Fox, etc.
Yeah.
That I tried to interview, his manager told me that he wouldn't do an interview with me because Rogan would get mad at him for talking to CNN. And
that's untrue. That's completely insane.
Okay.
That's completely insane.
Okay.
That is completely nuts. He was afraid of you.
Oh, okay.
He thought you were going to come in and really rough him up or something. There's no such thing as Rogan would be mad at someone for talking. That's crazy.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. Okay.
No.
Good. I'll let him know.
You think that's how it works? Rogan sends emails? I know you don't think that, but that's a crazy thing. Like, Rogan's like, what are you doing? Oh, you're doing this? No, do Gutfeld instead. No one cares. No one cares what anyone does. And the idea, I think people think life's very interesting. We see this with the QAnon people.
Right.
Where they're like, there's tunnels, and you go, it's really just rich people.
Okay.
And you go, well, but they're doing all these terrible things. You go, absolutely, but they always have. And a lot of them always probably will if they can get away with it. But the levels of intrigue that people build around these things, I don't find that they're not that super interesting. You know?
I just want to be clear though, this didn't come from like a commenter.
If he canceled my appearance because of this. I can't imagine any manager saying that. I mean, that's.
Oh no, the manager I spoke to directly.
No, I believe that they did. It's just such a funny and ridiculous thing.
Okay.
To me.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Do you think Rogan would talk to me?
I don't know. I mean, he's a big get.
I know.
He's a big get.
Important.
So I mean, you could try. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I had his money if I'd be doing any interview. I don't know if I'd be here. I think I would be on a boat. I probably wouldn't be doing a podcast. I'd be somewhere else. I don't know if you'd be able to find me with his level of income. I think I'd be gone.
Can you talk about, like, you had Steve Bannon on pretty recently. You had J.D. Vance on in the fall.
Yes. We reached out to Bernie, said no, said he couldn't do it because of his schedule. We like and respect Bernie. We reached out to Tim Walz. No response.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But what I'm interested in is, like, well, actually, I want to separate those two, but, like, Vance coming on your show.
Yes.
So he kind of talked about what he would do in office, or what he and Trump would do in office. This was before the election.
Right.
All right, Trump's been in office for some months now. Do you think about that interview in a different way at all? Like,
I would have asked more about the tech people. I didn't know. I had no idea that Elon was going to have a major role. I don't think anyone did.
Yeah.
I would have asked more questions about that. I would have asked more questions about people being deported because they've criticized Israel on a college campus, which I think is silly. I would have, but I didn't have the foresight to know that was a plan. I know that. I think a lot of people are not thrilled with those things.
Yeah.
Both on the right and the left.
A lot of his interview with you was about portraying him and Trump as like the anti-war candidates who
Yes.
were opposed to these adventures overseas.
Yes.
And though he didn't directly say they would end the war in Gaza, he had referred to, you know, wanton killing of Palestinians.
Right.
So what do you make of their policy since then?
I think it's disappointing. I think it's disappointing that to deport someone who wrote an op-ed or participated in a protest, and I may not agree with these people, but if they're here on a legal resident visa and they didn't commit a crime and you can't show that they're supporting Hamas, I think deporting them on the grounds that they said something objectionable isn't good. And I think that writing a blank check for whatever Israel wants to do is not good, in the same way that I oppose the idea of just completely having an open-ended commitment to the Ukraine. It's not because I think Vladimir Putin's a great guy. It's because I think every war in the history of mankind has been ended with some compromise and usually some territory deal. This is like every one, right? That hasn't been total obliteration. So my whole thing is I lived through 9/11, I lived through the Iraq War, I lived through the war in Afghanistan, I had friends die. We had this idea that we were sold that we were going around democratizing these countries. It was complete insanity. We really learned the no-bid contracts and the giveaways, and now the counties around Washington, D.C. are the richest in America, and you have this permanent war machine, and they're, and what attracted me to a lot of what Vance said in that interview was that he was saying things like, we don't want to run the American economy on permanent war, and we don't think it's a good thing.
But the wars continue.
That's why I'm disappointed, and that's why I don't want to go to Iran. I think that would be a big mistake.
But do you feel like Vance used you or spun you?
I don't know if Vance has the power you think he does. He's the vice president. I don't know how powerful the vice president is. Historically, they're not super powerful. If you read the group chat, Vance has expressed some disagreements with Trump, I think. Yeah. That's pretty obvious. I don't think Vance can wave a wand, but if the question is, if I could go back in time in a time machine and ask about tech people and the war with Iran, I would have asked more of those questions. But as you said, he was very open about the fact that, and Trump was very open about the fact that they were, the anti-war people. So hopefully they remain the anti-war people and we don't go to war with Iran and they find a way to end this conflict in the Middle East, which is absolutely terrible and heartbreaking. And, I think a lot of people are disappointed with some of these deportations and things like that. I think it's a very fair critique.
On the tech people.
Yes.
Obviously, you and Rogan aren't the same. You're all part of this
very
different human beings.
Yes.
I understand. But there's this kind of loose association. To me, when I hear, you have Vance on, you've talked about knowing Vance on your show. You joked about knowing RFK Jr., but I didn't know if you
I know
meant it.
him. I know him. I mean,
right.
When I know Vance, I say, we did an interview. I know people that know him. At RFK, I've been to dinner a few times. These are not close friends. Right. I'm not getting inside info. I just know them in the sense that, I've sat in a room with them and talked to them the way you would say you meet to this extent, right? But you don't have inside info about, what my inner dynamic, But RFK is, a very interesting guy who's said the same thing for 20 years, like it or not. And, he's kind of one of these guys where the world caught up to where he was. Again, for good or ill, depending on what your point of view is, but he's been out there saying these same things for a very long time.
But I ask because, do you feel like you're part of a new establishment that's being created?
I don't think I'm part of a new establishment. I think it would be pretty difficult to look at these podcasts. I know it's a popular thing right now, especially in certain media circles, to say that after running an incredibly unpopular candidate who was introduced very late in the race because an elderly man who could not be the president, who everyone told was functioning as the president for 4 years, decided to, this wind is wild, huh?
Yeah.
See? But this was a very specific circumstance in which Kamala Harris ran for the presidency. Yeah. She was somewhat unpopular, and she was not a star in Democratic politics before this at all. And her communication strategy was pretty weak. I think most people have admitted that. So to hang this defeat all on a few podcasts and to say that they were the problem, I just don't buy the narrative. So I don't think I'm a new establishment. If you weigh, again, a few comedians with podcasts versus all of the people that supported Kamala Harris, Democrat donors, billionaires, big people, if the idea is that me and a few comedians have more power than multi-billionaires, huge media institutions, a whole political party apparatus, I just don't think most people are going to buy that. I think it seems like a great way to excuse running an unpopular candidate on a platform that American people weren't sold on.
I think even beyond politics, though, even beyond the question of the election, again, I know the liberal Joe Rogan conversation is so dominant, and I think not nuanced enough. But there is power in a massive audience.
There's absolutely power in a massive audience, but if you're saying that power is equal to the CIA or all of these other people that have been very critical of President Trump, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that the power that Theo Von has would be equal to the intelligence agencies or these massive legacy media institutions seems crazy.
But you got way more audience than when you're saying we don't have power, we're not the CIA. Well, there's some gradations between that, and also I'm sure there's
Well, just you use the word establishment.
Yeah.
I didn't say that we didn't have any power or that audiences weren't powerful. But when you use the term establishment, I think that's more than just having an audience. That's having an institutional component that I don't think we have. But I think legacy media does. I think the government and the intelligence communities do. I think Hollywood certainly does. And I think all of those people, all of those power factions have worked together for a very, very, very long time. So to say that a few comedians with podcasts equal that seems crazy.
I see
to
why
me.
okay, I understand.
That's the only thing I'm saying.
It's I guess new establishment is kind of a term of art within old media, and maybe I'm not using that in a clear way, but it's this is the place to go to address Americans.
I certainly think it's becoming a place, and it should be a place, that a candidate should sit for a 2-hour interview with Joe Rogan. Why not?
But not just a candidate. Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Elon.
Sure. They should do that.
I mean, don't tell me that's not interesting. It's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Okay,
I
so
think
what do you
technology
make of
is
it?
very interesting.
What do you think of those tech people then?
I worry about them. I don't trust any of them,
I was
actually.
I was on the Reddit.
I don't trust any of them.
I was on the subreddit for your podcast.
Yeah.
And
Healthy people.
I like Reddit, but
I think some of them are lovely.
they put it in the work.
Yeah, and I appreciate it.
They were analyzing.
You attract what you are a little bit.
Oh God. Okay.
Yes.
They were analyzing your reaction to Elon Musk's Roman salute.
Yes.
And they were puzzling. The people were puzzling over whether you thought it was intended to be what it looked like.
Right.
What did you think it was?
I think he's trolling in a weird way.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a Nazi, but I think he's trolling. I think he desperately wants to be liked, and I think he desperately wants to be funny. And I think people that want those two things can make grave errors, especially around weird. I think the Bannon thing was literally he was just kind of weirdly waving. Steve Bannon's massively pro-Israel. He's a very, you know what I mean? He's not, if you look at the politics behind it, he's incredibly pro. That's not, it wouldn't make any sense. And I just think Elon was probably trying to be funny and trying to troll. And I think, I think that's probably what happened there. I don't think he's a Nazi, but I also think it was a very stupid thing to do.
And what do you make of trolling internet culture, the culture of our youth being now? I mean, you cannot say that Elon Musk is not establishment. He's established.
I think Elon Musk is a tech oligarch, I mean, in terms of the term establishment, it's just an interesting term. I think Elon Musk is a tech oligarch who has a relationship with our government, other governments. He's got an agenda. He's got a company. He wants things. So absolutely, I mean, he's one of the richest people in the world.
But what do you make of like internet trolling culture, like seizing hold of a guy like that?
It's inevitable. He's the most famous, one of the most famous people in the world. I think it's just an inevitability. He also kind of welcomes it and courts it a little bit.
But he's acting it out. It's not just...
I mean, he's like an over-the-top crazy, like, you know, these guys now are like, they're flying their own spaceships around. It's supervillain behavior, you know? And I mean, of course. I mean, I think it's going to get all kinds of attention.
What do you make of all those tech guys going on Rogan's podcast?
Well, I think, like you said, it's a place where they're all making the rounds. But again, it's like, I think anybody who's a Democrat, then a Republican, then a Democrat, then a Republican, who seems not to have a political ideology outside of their own interests is someone that probably should be watched. And I think a lot of these guys believe in some interesting stuff, like the transhumanist stuff, and I think it's way out of the mainstream of what the American public wants. I think the American public wants like health care, and they want like to be able to live and send their kids to school, and I don't think their main concerns are like, let's escape the planet, let's colonize Mars.
Among the big podcasts.
Yes, amongst the establishmentarian podcast elite.
That's right. Amongst the let's
the
call them the podcast elite.
The podcast Illuminati blue bloods. Yes.
Among those people, it seems like there is a cracking in the Trump coalition in terms of policy around Israel.
Yes.
Around as you spoke to a little bit, the student deportations.
Yeah.
And just in general, the continuation of the war. Can you tell me about that? Like, what do you think of that?
I think it's not only in that space. I think you see it all over. I think you see it on the left. Mm-hmm. I think you see it on the right. I think you see it everywhere. I think people, you're confronted with these images that are visceral and they're horrible. And these are children being killed. These are infants being killed and dying in their parents' arms. And I think the country's a pro-Israel country. Israel's an ally. I believe it has a right to exist. I believe it's not an inherently evil or bad place. But when you look at what's been going on, I don't think too many people with a conscience want to keep funding this. I mean, that's, and by the way, I've talked to friends, Jewish friends, people from Israel. I think a lot of people want this to end. I don't think it's specific to a certain group of podcasters. I think this is what's interesting, and there's nothing wrong with your question, but like, what this is like, this is a great example of like, this is an issue that's everywhere, but I think when you ask the question, you go, so what's going on in this coalition of right-wing podcasters? Is it, and it's like, well, I don't think it's specifically there. I think this is like the biggest foreign policy issue out, you know, that the entire country's debating.
Well, I interview like regular people, non-media people, non-extremists also.
Right.
Like, you know, just like regular Trump supporters.
I hope I'm in the extremist category. Don't put me in the non-extremist category. That's got to be the most boring people.
But those people don't think that much about foreign policy or Israel or the student deportations. Like sometimes if I ask, I was just in South Dakota, asking someone about the student deportations, he didn't know what I was talking about.
Right.
So, I guess I'm curious whether you think or expect or hope that just as these politicians have seen something to gain in your audience, do you think they'll listen at all?
Will politicians listen to their constituents?
Yeah.
What a great question with an unknowable answer. I mean, I think a lot of people elected Barack Obama not thinking that a lot of his cabinet was going to be directly drafted from Citigroup, right? I think a lot of people elected Donald Trump hoping that we were not going to continue foreign wars and spending American money for foreign wars. You know, I mean, this is the whole thing. Everybody campaigns on a laundry list of things they're going to do, and are they going to do them, and are they going to listen? I mean, it's a great question.
Does anyone ever back channel with you?
I think there's people that are frustrated. I think that I don't think it's a monolith. I think in a presidential administration, you have people that feel very differently. This is all being publicized right now over tariffs.
Yeah.
There are people that felt differently about tariffs, about all kinds of things. Do I talk to certain people? Sure. And some of them have different opinions, but, I don't think it's like they're doubting the overall course of action. I think it's just like you have people that are more hawkish, and there are people that are like much less hawkish. There's people that think that you need to confront Iran, and there's people that believe that would be a terrible strategic mistake. I would be of the latter group.
Yeah.
But, those are two ideas that are existing in that space.
You said that you often get same questions over and over in interviews like this.
Yeah.
What do you think is the right question to be asking?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know the right question to ask.
How long have you been a comedian?
I've been a comedian since 2010.
Yeah.
It's about 15 years.
Hasn't it changed a lot?
Comedy's changed, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Tell me more about that.
Everything's
I didn't
changed.
realize every comedian has a podcast, no matter how.
Well, here's the thing. It's like comedy used to be an offshoot of traditional Hollywood, where there were a ton of gatekeepers that had the power to give you the special, the part, the role, the show, the deal. Now you have to do a lot of it yourself. You have to put out stuff on the internet, and it can either connect with an audience, or it can or it won't. And then, there are people that have large platforms that can share their audience with you, people like Joe. And, I think that's what you see right now happening in the creative space, is like it's a bottom up. It's not top down. It's people that are just, people that are coming up from social media, a lot of people on TikTok. If you look at Coachella and all these people, right? What's going on? Who are these people? But they're people that exist on TikTok, and they exist. And you get ready with them, and they tell you about skincare, and they love their food influencers, although they're all thin and hot, but they all eat food all day, apparently, and they know everything about food, but they're hot and also in great shape, but love food. Or they have a depression, and they talk about that, or whatever it is. And they just go directly to a group of people that finds that content appealing, and those people then create audiences based on these things. Whereas at one point, you really did have to go through a process to have any type of career in the space of entertainment.
One comedian I spoke to said the decision maker used to be like Hollywood executives, people who ran the late night shows, and now the decision maker is the YouTube algorithm.
It's not the worst quote, yeah. I think, you have these algorithms that push certain things, and, but you can also, if you do interesting stuff, I think you'll find an audience. I don't know how big it'll be, but I think you'll find an audience that's pretty cool, that's, pretty sustainable if you keep doing good stuff. Doesn't mean it'll be the biggest audience.
You've talked a lot about the Iraq War as being kind of like a visceral moment in your life. The comedy at that time was like Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, left-wing critics of the Bush administration and of the Iraq War. Why do you think that style of comedy has fallen away?
Has it?
Yeah, I mean, according to the people who worked for them, yeah.
I mean, I think Jon Stewart's still very popular and goes viral all the time, saying interesting things,
right? You think The Daily Show gets the same kind of audience?
I don't think The Daily Show does, but I think Jon Stewart, because you brought up Jon Stewart, so why? Well, that's a story of why traditional media has just declined, and I mean, it's just, it's just the rise of people being able to watch things on their phones and stuff, and I remember when YouTube was a slur. Yeah. When you would sit down at a meeting and they go on YouTube, right? Now it's the biggest media operation in the world, but at a time it was a slur. You sit in an ivory tower, you think that the big three are always going to be the big three. You think, you're not afraid of streaming, you're not afraid of YouTube. It's a story as old as time. It's hubris, it's everything else. And traditional media operations don't, it's a big ship, it's hard to steer, and it's hard to admit when you need to change course. And I think the decline, I don't know if it's the decline of that kind of comedy. I think it's those kind of platforms. Mm-hmm. That comedy, there's very, very successful comedians that are left of center comedians.
Like who?
I mean, what do you mean like who? Chelsea Handler. I think John Mulaney probably. I think that you would find Sarah Silverman. I think Bill Burr, Louis C.K. He's never voted for a Republican in his life. Why? Because he's an imperfect person? These are massively successful comedians. They're all more successful than I am. And there's nothing wrong with that. And they're all left-leaning comedians. Is there this idea that, like, they're not around or you can't find them? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
No. But there's not
they're all doing
this
great.
Cultural energy around.
They're not all as big as they were because I think careers go up and down.
I mean, I interviewed like a late night comedy writer who was like, this
Kimmel, Fallon.
This thing is spent, but like, okay, but all those people who had the kind of like left-wing shows like Amy Schumer and Michelle Wolf, those Samantha Bee, those have all been canceled. All those shows are canceled.
Well, but there'll be new ones. I mean, do you not have the faith? Do you think there's going to be no left-wing comedy?
I don't see like a little ecosystem or like a galaxy. I mean, you might dispute this, but like in the sort of right of center,
there's a galaxy
world,
there's
right?
An establishment.
There's Rogan, and there's all this stuff.
I mean, again, is Trevor Noah not popular? He does arenas.
No. Is he popular?
He's an arena comedian. He's one of the most popular comedians in the country. Hassan Minhaj, Ronnie Chang, these guys are all left-wing, and they're all really funny, really popular comics who I'm friends with and like.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't think this thing's happening. Whatever everyone thinks happening, I don't think it's happening. This idea that, like, left-wing like, where are they? Where are they? Where are they to be found? Where's Amy Schumer? I don't know. She's in her $15 million townhouse in Brooklyn. I think she'll be okay. I think these people will be okay.
But her show was canceled.
She just had a show on Hulu called Life in Bath. She just had a movie come out on Netflix. I mean, Amy's doing good.
Okay.
Yeah, they're fine. All these people are fine. I will text a few of them and go, people are worried about you.
Okay.
I think they're okay.
I mean, if they want to talk to me, I would love to talk to them.
Sure. I'll put you on a group text.
Do you think that represents like where the cultural energy is?
Where the culture seems to be so fractured, I don't know if there's a cultural energy that's moving in any direction. I mean, you could go on YouTube and go, the cultural energy is right. And you go to a college campus and you go, the cultural energy is left. And then you go to the boomers and own all the real estate and you go, the cultural energy is like paranoid, fear-based, checked out, and is politically amorphous depending on what pills and drinks they've had. I mean, I don't know. If you could find where the cultural energy in this country is going, you're doing a lot better than me.
Well, you are on the internet.
I am on the internet.
I think you're playing dumb.
I don't think I'm playing dumb. I really don't know where the cultural energy. That means, like, the idea that we have one dominant cultural energy in this country seems crazy to me. The idea that have we stopped canceling people for silly things? Yes. Why? It got exhausting. Does that mean that everyone's right wing now? No.
Like Fox, I guess it's Fox Nation, but like Fox is doing comedy specials now, and then those comedians do the rounds on like Gutfeld.
Comedy specials are very cheap to make and very cheap to produce. Okay. I think CNN also did a few. Didn't they do Colin Quinn's, who's a brilliant comedian? Didn't they put his on?
We have a comedy show.
Yeah, like I don't think it's if your point is...
And would you be like, yes, I want to work there. I want to be on CNN's comedy show?
Hey, call me and pay me. But I will say that I understand what you mean. If you look at young people that went through COVID, has there been a rightward shift? Absolutely. 110%. When they grow up and they can't afford anything, will there be a leftward shift? Probably.
Okay.
I just think things are more malleable and they're changing a lot. I think a lot of those people are, a lot of them are pretty socially moderate and liberal. Mm-hmm. I think they just got really annoyed during this moral panic we had with cancellations, and then none of them could go to their prom, and there certainly was a rightward shift in that direction. But I don't think there's like this crazy shift all over the country.
What about in comedy?
I think the shift in comedy has been away from institutions on all sides. There's incredibly funny left-wing podcasts that you may or may not know, but they have huge audiences, but they're not attached to a Hollywood studio or a big production company or a network. You know, again, I can name you very successful left-wing or left of center comics who are playing in theaters and arenas and have movies out. And then I can name you some which apparently now there's 5 podcasters that dominate the whole world. This is a crazy thing.
No,
but this is every article that's been written since the election.
I understand.
Is that 5 guys now are the only people in comedy who make money or have audiences. It's the craziest narrative ever, and it came off the heels of running one of the most unpopular candidates with a platform that the American people largely rejected. They largely rejected this platform, and they rejected it in 2016, and then everybody got together and said, it's actually these 5 guys who had podcasts. They're the most powerful people in the world. They're the new establishment, and they're the reason for this electoral defeat, not our unpopular policies and our candidate who ran on a platform of joy.
But I think you're arguing against a point I'm not trying to make.
Yeah. But others have.
Of course.
And it's this, where's the Rogan, where's the this, where's the that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But comedy is different now, and I think it's really interesting, and that doesn't mean it's bad. I'm not saying, are you bad?
I just thought, when you say comedy is different, I understand what you mean, because there's some popular comics that have a right of center point of view.
Yes.
But I think that was always the case.
But also people are moving to Austin. Every comedian has a podcast, and then they all go on each other's podcasts. Really? Why?
They're getting priced out, and they can't get the stage time they want, and they're coming back from Austin. I mean, that's going to be another.
Like, I wanted to go to Kill Tony, and I can't buy tickets because they sell it within seconds.
Well, it's a very popular show.
And another comic I talked to who used to live in Austin was saying, like, you go on Kill Tony, you do well, that can really make your career.
It can help, for sure, but comedy careers are long things.
Yeah.
You have to work for a very long time. There are things, you have great moments, you have ups and downs, you have ebbs and flows. I don't know that anything makes a career. I think it's just a long, sustained attack.
Where do you feel like you are in yours?
I don't know. I think at a good place. I wouldn't mind coasting. It would be nice if it went up, but who can demand such things?
Right.
I'm trying, but you know, I'm from Long Island. I fight the urge to kind of be lethargic and, you know, kind of hang out at seafood restaurants and stuff and sit on the back deck. Like, I don't get up every single day and go, how do we become the most famous person in the world? It's nice to have a shrimp cocktail. It's nice to not do things. So I don't know if I'll fight that as hard. We'll see.
Did you feel like I felt like when I was listening to your interview with Steve Bannon, he was like, not exactly pitching you, but kind of trying to draft you into his project.
Well, I don't know what it's like giving me a job, per se.
No, like his view of what MAGA should be and what Trump should represent.
Steve Bannon, again, like RFK, whether you like him or dislike him, has been saying a lot of the same things for a very long time. He's the only person I've ever heard in this country say, why aren't there more black and Spanish people in tech? If you can go find examples of people saying things like that on the world stage. I mean, Steve Bannon's one of those people who said that. He's the only guy who's critiquing Elon Musk from the right at his stature, and he's a very interesting guy to talk to, you know? I don't know if he was recruiting me for his project, like he was like, and you're gonna, but I think he was basically saying, here's my worldview, and I had a lot of liberals call me after that and go, do I agree with Steve Bannon? Like, what the hell's going on? A lot of people were calling me because the things he was saying were kind of, you know, you have all these critiques of Elon from the left. There's one guy making them from the right. I'm like, why not interview this guy?
Do you think he was honestly representing his views?
I mean, I'm not God and I'm not omniscient, so I can never understand what's going on inside someone's head.
He did run a website that had a tag for black crime.
What, the Breitbart website?
Yes.
I don't think everything on Breitbart is phenomenal, obviously. But I also, when I'm doing an interview and someone's sitting there and they're saying these are the views, if the question is he serious about it or is he accurately representing his views? I don't know. There's a lot of people who've talked about black crime that aren't talking about it from a inherently racist point of view. Now, I don't know what that tag on that website was. And I'm not saying it was the greatest, most highly inspired discussion. I'm just saying that, like, when he's sitting there going, I think the American working class has been shortchanged and that we should tax the rich and all these things coming from this guy who got Donald Trump elected, saying things that would make a lot of conservatives that I grew up with start vomiting. It's an interesting conversation.
But I would be skeptical of him as a figure of racial transcendence.
I don't know if people look at him as a figure of racial transcendence.
That is kind of how you were just pitching.
But he also he made that quote, like, he does think that the American citizen has been, given the short end of the stick. I think that's why he has been very vocal against this idea that, like, Americans won't do jobs or can't do jobs or are ill-equipped or too lazy or something like that. I don't know if I think, there are people that have fixed opinions of him that will never change. Mm-hmm. And I don't make it a point to, like, I don't know everything he's done. I can't defend everything he's done. I'm sure he wouldn't defend everything I've done. I'm sure no one would defend everything anyone's done. But the idea is, like, is this a Trojan horse? Like, is Steve Bannon saying all this stuff because he really wants to get in there and, like, resegregate lunch counters? I don't see the evidence of that. Mm-hmm. He said his favorite city is New York. Like, there's things about, like, I just also don't know that, like, is he Trojan horsing all of this stuff so that he can go in there and, like, run a really race-based thing? Everything he said was kind of about class.
It was, yeah.
So, again, it's a hard question to ask, right? Like, what's in his...
I know.
Right, and it's a difficult thing to know.
It's the kind of question I have to ask in my job quite a bit.
And I understand that. I have seen no evidence that he is trying to bring back the type of Jim Crow era stuff or anything like that.
I use the black crime example just to say, like, figures like Steve Bannon or J.D. Vance or whoever you might have on in the political world, they spin, they confuse, they try to conceal what they really think. Like, one of the hardest parts of my job is, like, sitting across from someone, having a great conversation with them, and then having to have a question in my mind, like, but are they lying to me?
Right.
And I'm wondering if you, now that so many politicians see comedians as a great place to talk, for good reasons, not necessarily for bad, do you find yourself in the position where now you have to be more skeptical of people you normally would just, like, have a conversation with?
I think that absolutely, that everybody who comes on a show, whether they're a politician or a huge tech person, has an agenda. And I think that those people are going to have varying degrees of, what would be the word, integrity. But I can't know. If Vance says we're anti-war people, and I take him at his word on that, and then we go to war with Iran in 2 months, the real question for me is, like, again, right? It's like the entire media, when Obama came on and said, we're hope and change, we want to restore the middle class, and then a lot of decisions are made by, these, people in the cabinet that they have an allegiance to the financial industry. Is it the fault of everyone who interviewed Obama? Is it the fault of everyone? Like, if these people get into
No, but if you go back and you look at the interviews of Obama that were like, aren't you just amazing?
Yeah, there was a lot of those.
It looks bad, right? And so part of the job, even if it's just to save face, is to be like, but how are you really going to close Guantanamo? Like, do you really think you'll be able to do it?
Well, I mean, like, if the thing is, like, to say to Steve Bannon, but aren't you really a racist? Like, you've said all this stuff about the American middle class, but don't you really hate black people? Like, that seems to be, like, again, they have to present the evidence.
He did call his website a platform for the alt-right in 2016.
I think there's the terminology of those things, and those things also started as one thing and they became another thing, for sure. I think he is very much not the mainstream American right, as he's talked about, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people in his movement that have broken with him because he isn't as extreme as they want him to be. And again, it's not to endorse everything he's ever said. I think this is the other thing, right? Where it's like if J.D. Vance comes on my show, the answer is like, well, wait a minute. Why didn't you suss out every single thing that J.D. Vance does or doesn't believe? J.D. Vance articulated a broad version of what he believed on the show in the same way that I've heard Kamala Harris and all these people articulate a broad version of what they believe. And then they go into office and then they do whatever they want to do or whatever the donors want. Or if they have integrity, they do some of what they say. And again, is the responsibility on a podcaster to judge the integrity of someone they've met in an hour? Or to, I don't know. I think you should have a healthy degree of skepticism. But again, I don't think that it falls on any one person to do that. I think that's a judgment that generally the country makes, you know?
Yeah, I'm not saying like, oh, you should have asked this. It's so easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Well,
I don't think it's easy, but
I also
do you think about it now?
Yeah, I think about it now. I think about the tech stuff. I think about all the stuff that I would have asked, but all of it kind of came out of nowhere a little bit. Like this idea, like Elon was not pitched for a formal role, right? There was this idea that he was supporting Trump, and everybody knew, but it's like it kind of came out of nowhere. And then the H-1B visa issue came out of not nowhere per se, but like that was a rift, right? So you've seen these rifts happen in real time, and like for sure people should be skeptical. But like I asked J.D. Vance, I said, when people say Trump's a dictator, when people do that, and when people do that, and J.D. Vance said, hey, you lived through 4 years of Trump, you got this, you got the good economy, you're going to work this, that, and the other thing. And I guess there could the follow-up where I could have said, but isn't he really a dictator? Don't you really think he's a dictator? I asked a lot of those questions. I said, people feel it's the end of democracy. I mean, you could watch the interview, and J.D. Vance said, but that's all silly.
Well, Vance did say he wouldn't have voted to validate the 2020 election results, and he did say we needed a de-Bathification program of American institutions.
Well, I do think
go really, really far.
Well, I do think a lot of people want reform of American institutions. I think a lot of people want that. I think there was just an election that decided that a lot of people want that.
Well, you're saying no one could have seen this like Elon Musk tear through the government. And
well, I mean, what I mean is that you have points of contention within people that agree about largely the same goals. You have people that say, we want to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse, but we think it's being done in a sloppy way. You have people that go, we're all in on Doge. You have people that go, we need to confront Iran. You have people that go, we need to, and they all largely agree that Trump was a better choice than Harris, but you do have points within those people where they disagree on things. So I don't know if it's fair that any one person, even if it's the vice president, is going to be able to illustrate how anything is going to happen.
Did you find him to be authentic?
I found him to be a politician.
Yeah.
So I've never found a politician to be anything other than a politician.
Like, okay,
it's like asking like a salesperson. Like, have you ever met a realtor? Do you find a realtor to be authentic, or do you have to buy a house? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think when you go in there and go, I don't know J.D. Vance, I'm sure J.D. Vance is a tremendously ambitious guy who's gotten where he's gotten because some of his views have shifted. A lot of people's views shift, right? He famously said about Trump, he likened him to Hitler, and now he's running as his vice president. I think that if you're asking, are politicians the most authentic people in the world? Absolutely not.
On your interview. Okay, let me ask you about a specific. There's one thing that really stuck out to me, not important, not significant, but he was like, oh, you know what Kamala Harris is like? It's something about how, oh, she's like a substitute teacher, or she's the kind of person where you try to tell her a joke, and she tells you why that's not funny. And I thought that was a canned line written by a staffer.
I disagreed with him on that. I said she's a fun drunk.
Yeah.
I said I think she'd actually.
What did you make of that? Did you feel like he was?
I think that's probably a line he's used a few times, but I said I think Kamala Harris is like a fun drunk. And would be a lot of fun.
But what
She's
did
like
you make of that? Like, in that moment where you're like...
What do I make of like a politician having a prepared line? I was like, oh my God.
No, but
this is like, crazy. No, I was like, this guy has probably a canned line. Like, a lot of politicians have had canned lines. I mean, these are not the coolest people in our world. They're like dork politicians.
Yeah, but they want you to make them look cool.
I think they want to tell people who they are, and it's a version of who they are that wants a job. So yes, do they come on shows to look cool? Yes. Or competent, or smart, or they have integrity? Absolutely. But again, the question really becomes like, why isn't Tim Walsh doing that?
That's an interesting question.
You know, like, but again, it's like, does that invalidate him for the job that he made, that he had a can line? These are not the coolest people in the world. I don't think, and the tech guys, when they go on Joe, it's like sad.
So why have him on your comedy show?
What?
So why have him on your comedy show?
Well, because it's very interesting to talk to somebody who might be the vice president. That's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that? You know, like, I mean, there doesn't seem to be a good reason.
Because he might use you to further his own ends, perhaps even ends that you don't agree with.
Yeah, but I think that's everybody that goes on any show is using that platform to get a message out that you may or may not agree with. I don't think the whole point of having a podcast is to talk to people whom you may or may not agree with. Otherwise, you'd only have the people on your show that you agreed with. You'd have a terribly uninteresting show. Yeah. Nobody would listen. Right. And you'd have to like get rid of all the politicians, all the tech people, all the big celebrities. Everyone that's a public person that has an agenda couldn't come on the show. And that would be crazy, right? Because these people are all peddling something, and you're going to sit there and talk to them because that's the job of anyone with a show, is to make it interesting. My job's not to save the country. My job's to have an interesting or entertaining show.
Isn't it to be funny?
It's to be funny, yeah. I think there were parts of the interview that were funny. I do a show with mainly no guests. Yeah. I have hours and hours and hours of talking. Most of it,
I've watched
a lot of it's funny. But I will occasionally have a guest, whether it's a friend or somebody that I find interesting. I think Steve Bannon said a lot of interesting stuff, you know? And
okay, one other thing.
Yeah, of course.
On his maybe Roman salute, he said to you like, "Oh, that was just a nanosecond, freeze frame." No, it wasn't.
Well, I didn't. I saw the thing, and he basically said.
Didn't you watch the video?
I watched the video, but his claim is that he was waving to a crowd. So I got to look at this. I got to say, if Steve Bannon is a pro-Israel guy who's never really talked about Jewish influence or any of the things that we know, you know, people talk about, Bannon's not really doing that.
Yeah.
So I find it weird to believe that he's going to, apropos of nothing, become a Nazi overnight. So that's why I took him at his word when he said, I'm waving to someone.
I mean, I think that's correct. I also think he's set himself up in opposition to Elon Musk, who did that. So, like, why would he? So, like, yeah, I truly am interested in the backstory there. But I would humbly submit that you did not get the backstory from him.
I didn't get the backstory. The backstory of what, the Roman salute? He said he was waving.
But you know it wasn't just a nanosecond.
Well, he said he was captured waving.
But it wasn't like
But
that.
again, so what was I? So was I going to say, are you actually not like?
No, I think you're like, come on, man, that wasn't a nanosecond.
But it was. I think you could freeze frame.
No, he stands there and he's got like a goofy look on his face.
I think you could freeze frame a lot of people doing a gesture, and you could get very close to that gesture.
But it wasn't a freeze frame.
But you could.
Of course you could do that.
Right.
People did. There's lots of memes of it.
I mean, again, when you ask someone that question and they say to you, I was waving to a crowd and they caught it to make me seem like I'm a Nazi, the only other thing I could say is, come on, man, but you're a Nazi. Do you know what I mean? And he's never, in anything that I've been aware of, expressed any interest in that sphere of the internet, which you well know exists.
Of course.
But he, you know, in your own research, do you find a lot of Steve Bannon stuff in that world?
No, I mean, he did have Milo Yiannopoulos as a correspondent.
Understandable.
Eventually left. He wrote a whole guide to the alt-right thing, which included a bit on the 1488ers. We're getting a little too in the weeds on this. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I think he spun you a little bit.
And by the way, maybe he did, but nothing in his past has indicated that he had any sympathy for the Third Reich.
Right. So why are people doing this? Like, you don't think Elon is a Nazi? It's just a weird
thing for me to think.
But you don't think
do you think Elon's a Nazi?
No, but I don't think it was an accident.
I think why do it? I think Elon was trolling and trying to be funny, and he was being stupid.
But you don't think Bannon was trolling?
Bannon's not a troll. Like, did you watch the interview?
Yes.
It's a different energy than Elon. It's not a troll energy.
Yeah.
It's fully like this quasi-autistic, like, this is the way it is energy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I read it. I could be wrong.
Are you on the spectrum?
No, I'm not. I mean, maybe. Who knows?
Right.
I don't think so.
I
mean, it depends. Is there money in it? I don't think it. I think it was more of a troll on Elon's thing, and the Bannon thing seemed to me like it was somewhat accidental. But maybe I'm wrong. But I don't. Again, he's shown no evidence that he's sympathetic to that belief system.
I'm like kind of having an epiphany, like in this interview. Is like I wonder. It is possible that maybe the journalistic fixation on the whole podcast thing is partly like you guys are kind of taking our jobs but not doing the shitty part, which is like the uncomfortable thing in the room that sucks, which is like, are you bad? Just like
are the journalists doing that? Are they
maybe not.
That?
Maybe not.
Are
enough.
they doing the "Are you bad"? Is that what journalists?
I have to
doing?
do the "Are you bad"?
Sure, but is that what is your view of and it's a fair question, is your view of mainstream American journalism calling out powerful people? Is that what we've been seeing?
Do you read ProPublica?
Okay, but do you know what I mean? Like when we
It's not a monolith. It's not a...
And I also just don't think that one interview with J.D. Vance is doing a journalist job. I think it's one interview.
I am sort of speaking to you as representative.
And then the next thing I'm talking about Oompa Loompas.
Right.
So that's the thing. It's like, I think this should be a time for journalists to go, wow, we're going to really supercharge and do a lot of stuff and be great. Yeah. Jane Mayer's not accusing me of taking her job.
Well,
Seymour Hersh is not saying I'm taking his job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, well,
I'm just wondering if maybe
and
that's
I'm not taking your job.
The...
You're going all over the place, getting into these deep holes and fleshing out stuff. I'm not doing any of that.
Yeah.
I'm sitting and having a conversation with somebody, whether it's a friend of mine, a guy who wants to be the vice president, or I'm yelling at like a family member who can't respond because they don't have a show. That's a fucking podcast,
Yes, but one, a lot of people get their news from podcasts, and two,
again, that's not my problem.
They develop an extremely tight mental relationship with you. Again, it's been called the friendship simulator.
And that's fine, but like if people are only getting their news from one source and it's a podcast with a comedian, that's not my fault. Okay. It really isn't. But I think those people should read and listen to lots of different stuff.
Okay.
I listen to Pivot every week. I don't always agree with them. I disagree with them a lot. Yeah. I listen every week. So if you're consuming one thing, I just feel like there's a lot less people around that are getting their news solely from me. I don't think that's happening as much. I think people say it as a joke. Like, I get my news from this guy. It's like a meme, and I sit there and I have these crazy glasses on, and I'm wearing a crazy hoodie.
Yeah.
And people go, I get my news from this guy. And I think that's funny. I think people get their news from, like, local news.
No, they don't.
A lot of times people do, like the news
people
that matters.
People who are 85.
If a plane crashes, people don't go to my show and go, what's his take?
No, they go to Twitter and then they look for your take on the helicopter crash, which just happened.
Well, I think it's a good take, and that's the day after that crash, you're getting the best deals. No one's getting a better deal on a helicopter ride the day after that crash. And that's information the tourists can use.
I mean, these are not my "are you bad" questions, just so you know. I'm not saying you're bad, but do you think about these things?
We're all bad. I'll stop you there. I think we're all bad. I think humanity has a flaw, no?
Like, can I make the Steelman case for you being bad?
Yes, absolutely.
You helped. The Steelman case for you being bad is...
Of course.
You rolled out the red carpet for J.D. Vance to make his case that he's just like you, man. He likes jokes. He hates war. He wants working class people to be happy and work in factories and make widgets. Yeah. And then that enables him to get in office and deport people on college campuses for saying this war is bad.
He's in the group chat saying, I don't think the president realizes what a big strategic mistake this is going to be.
But then he also says, but if we're going to do it, prayers up.
Here's the deal. And do I criticize that? I absolutely do.
Okay.
if you watch my show and I'm bad, your case makes sense if I go on my show and I go, JD made me, I realized something's different and they should be deported and we should do this. I have called them out since they've gotten in for this. And you can find clips of it.
I've watched.
And you've watched it. If I went along with it, I'm bad. I'm saying I don't agree with it. Don't deport these people. It's absurd. If someone commits a crime, like a violent crime or something, and they're a student and they do something, if you're at a Columbia protest and you assault another student and you're here on a visa, that's something that your visa could probably get revoked. If you're there and you're speaking out, I'm against you being deported. I'm fully against it, and I've called it out. Your case becomes accurate if I go on my show and I compromise my principles for these people. I never. Absolutely. So if JD Vance wants to come on my show and goes, hey, I believe this, that, and the other thing, and I go, that sounds good, but then in practice he does the opposite things, I call him out. And if you don't call them out, that's when you suck.
Okay. Now, do you ever wrestle with the question, am I bad? For example, I'll just give you one from my own life. I actually interviewed one of the students who came under scrutiny from Homeland Security and rather than show up to be deported, left the country. Yeah. And I'm like, damn, should I have done that story differently so people cared more or whatever? Do you wrestle, like obviously like 15 years ago, did you get into comedy to like do a commentary on politicians to interview?
I always had opinions, and some of them are funny, and some of them, I guess, interesting. So it's like, did I get into it to interview the vice president? No, I never thought that would be possible.
Right.
I never thought I'd have a show that was big enough where the vice president would come on, or the guy who was going to be the vice president, right? Mm-hmm. Did I get into this to have an opinion about stuff, then say what I think? I think it's why a lot of people get into comedy. Do I feel responsible for Trump winning? No.
No, that's not my question.
But also, do I think, are we asking the same question to the people when Biden won and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden wrote a blank check to Benjamin Netanyahu to do anything he wanted in Israel? Are we holding all of those people to the same standard, and are we asking them, do you feel bad because you got an administration elected that wrote a blank check to someone to kill tens of thousands of people? Are we using this across the board? Because then we're never going to have to talk to another politician. If the standard is don't talk to anyone who's going to do terrible things, you can never speak to a politician in this country ever for any reason. And I don't know that that's the way forward. You interview a lot of people. Does that get them more fans in some cases? I don't know. Who knows? You know? But if we're never going to interview another politician, that's fine. But every single politician in America is probably going to commit some war crime in office. This is pretty obvious. So you can never speak to them, and that might be the standard. There is an argument that no politician should ever go on any type of show that isn't like a public lashing where you have 3 people come on and they just attack or whatever, and then that politician can only participate in these 3 debates, and they're all publicly funded or whatever. But if you're having all of this different media landscape where people are popping in and out of these things, you're going to end up talking to people who do things you disagree with and you find abhorrent. And if you don't call them out, you can't get in a time machine and go back and realize that they were going to do all these things. But if you don't call them out, like the Democratic Party didn't call out Obama when he was doing drone strikes, there was Jeremy Scahill, there was like 4 guys doing it. That's when you don't have integrity. But I want to always be like consistent with, if I feel it's wrong, I want to say it's wrong. But yeah, dude, I think everybody wrestles with the idea that is what I'm doing good? Is my show good? Is it interesting? Is it funny? Is it worthwhile? Is it worth people's time? But you know, if I'm going to speak to any politician, I'm going to probably accept the fact that they're going to end up doing something down the road that, you know, they're going to drone strike someone. There's going to be a kid in Yemen who dies, and it's a guy that I've spoken to, or a girl, or a lady.
You mentioned that kids became more right-wing after COVID. Are comedians moving to meet audience demand, or are they shaping the audience?
No, comedians criticize what's absurd. I think a lot of people found COVID restrictions absurd. I think standing 6 feet behind someone in a circle at McDonald's just seemed crazy. And if you weren't making fun of it, I don't really know what you were doing.
Someone described you to me as a gay Rush Limbaugh. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's an insult, but I think he was very good at what he did. And I think you're also talking to a lot of comedians with no money who dislike me.
No, this was not a hater. This was not a hater.
This was a lot of the people that live in your neighborhood can't pay their bills, and unfortunately, they all went into comedy, and a lot of them didn't succeed. So I think they're saying it as an insult, but I actually thought he was very good at his job.
Well, think of Rush Limbaugh in the way of, one, able to carry an audience along many, many hours solo.
Sure.
And then, but two, you really did drive opinion.
I think he did, for sure. Yeah. Well, but I think it wasn't said, that wasn't said in like in a complimentary way from your friends.
This was not a hater. This was not a hater? This was not a hater.
Okay.
But
yeah.
Do you see or hope for some parallels with Limbaugh in that way? In the one,
no,
you can do the solo hours. Do you hope to drive opinion?
I hope to make a good show that's interesting. I mean, that's all I'm trying to do. If my show is interesting and entertaining, then it's worth someone listening to for an hour. I mean, this idea of like driving opinion, I call out things I think are crazy. If people agree with me, great, but there's a lot of people that don't agree with me that go, but it's an interesting or funny show. So as long as you're listening, I don't care if you agree with me or not. I think Limbaugh cared, or at least it was a little different. If you disagree with me, I don't care as long as you find the show interesting or funny enough to listen.
Okay.
I think that's the main difference.
That's fair. Anything else? No. Great.
Thank you.
I know you have to go.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Release a lot of it. It's good.
Yeah, that was fun.